Look at me. After everything I did for this marriage, this is how you repay me?
You brought shame to this house. You still stand there like nothing happened. I will not suffer in silence anymore.
Lower your voice. This is my house, and I will not explain myself to you. If you cannot accept the situation, then you know where the gate is.
He always mess things up. Look at you two.
In a city in western Nigeria lived a couple, Femi and Morenike. They had been lovers for a long time before they finally got married. Their love story was beautiful, filled with happy memories, laughter, and promises to always stay faithful to each other. But Femi broke that vow. He did something that would change their marriage forever. He got Morenike's best friend, Bisi, pregnant. Femi had been keeping this secret for a while. He wished he could hide it forever, but Bisi was already threatening to tell Morenike. It wouldn't be good if Morenike found out from someone else. She deserved to hear the truth from him. That night, after dinner and watching some TV shows, Femi decided to open up to his wife. They were seated on the bed, getting ready to sleep. The room was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock. Morenike lay on her bed, her eyes half closed. She was already feeling sleepy when Femi held her hand. "Babe, I want to tell you something," Femi said softly. "Can't it wait till tomorrow?" Morenike mumbled, her voice tired. "No, babe, it's important," Femi insisted. Morenike turned to look at him, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "Okay, what is it?" she asked. Femi took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast. I had an affair with someone," he confessed. Morenike's eyes widened. She sat up immediately. "You had an affair? You have been cheating on me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry," Femi said, looking down. Morenike took a deep breath. Her chest felt tight. "It's good you opened up to me. It's hard, but I have forgiven you. Giving you won't go back to the person again," she said. Femi sighed. He wished it was that simple. "That's the problem," he said. "What's the problem?" Morenike asked, frowning. Femi swallowed hard. "The person is pregnant for me," he finally said. Morenike froze. It felt like the world had stopped moving. "The person is pregnant for you? Femi, you know how hard I've been trying for us to have a baby in this marriage. Going to different doctors, taking different medications, doing different tests. And you just went out there and got another woman pregnant?" she said, trying hard to hold back her tears. "It wasn't intentional. It was a mistake," Femi said. Morenike let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? You mean you were sitting at home and your manhood left your body, went straight to the person and got her pregnant without you realizing it?" she asked. Femi couldn't say anything. The room was silent. "Who is this person? Do I know her?" Morenike asked, staring at him. Femi hesitated. He couldn't look at his wife. After a few seconds, he finally spoke. It's Bisi," he said. Morenike's heart sank. She felt dizzy. "You mean Bisi, my best friend?" she asked, hoping she had heard wrong. "You're Bisi," Femi confirmed. Morenike gasped. "You got my best friend pregnant? Femi, of all the women in the world, my best friend?" she cried out in shock. "She came on to me," Femi tried to explain. "You know what? I don't have time for this. I don't want to see your face tonight, Morenike said. She grabbed a pillow and left the bedroom, going straight to the guest room. That night, she cried. She cried for her broken marriage. She cried for her lost friendship. She cried because after 2 years of trying, she had not been able to get pregnant for her husband. If only she had given Femi a child, maybe this wouldn't have happened. She had seen different doctors, and they all told her there was nothing wrong with her. Then why couldn't she conceive? What was the problem? She couldn't sleep. Her mind was filled with painful thoughts. The next morning, she was still lying in the guest room when Femi walked in. Good morning, babe, Femi greeted. Morenike didn't respond. She didn't even look at him. Femi sighed. Bisi will be coming to live with us for a while till she gives birth, he said. Morenike's heart skipped a beat. She's coming here to live with us? She finally wants to take over my home? Why don't you rent her an apartment somewhere else? She asked, her voice shaking. I suggested that, but she said the baby won't like it. She said the baby wants to spend time with the father, Femi explained. And you believed that? Morenike asked in disbelief. She's carrying my baby, Femi said simply. Morenike closed her eyes. She didn't want to argue. It was too early in the morning for that. Later in the afternoon, Femi brought Bisi home. Morenike was in the kitchen preparing lunch when she heard the front door open. My friend, Bisi said in a teasing tone as she walked into the kitchen. Morenike didn't say anything. She didn't even look at Bisi. Are we fighting? Bisi asked, pretending to be innocent. You can use the guest room. It's opposite the main bedroom, Morenike finally said, her voice cold. Bisi scoffed. Why should I use the guest room? At least I am the one pregnant. I have already put my things in the main bedroom. I am carrying Femi's baby, so I should be treated with love and respect, Bisi said, folding her arms. Morenike's hands clenched into fists. Bisi, I will not watch you come into my home and take over my matrimonial bed, she said firmly. She quickly picked up her phone and dialed Femi's number. Hello, Femi, she said immediately he picked up. Will you please tell your baby mama to use the guest room instead of trying hard to use our matrimonial bedroom? She asked angrily. Femi sighed over the phone. Why are you making this difficult, Morenike? If she wants to use the matrimonial bedroom, let her. After all, a bed is a bed. Please, behave maturely. Don't stress Bisi. She's carrying my baby. I don't want to repeat this again, Femi said and hung up the phone. Morenike felt like she was dreaming. What happened to the man she married? Where was the Femi who once loved her so much? Tears rolled down her cheeks. Auntie, come and pick up your things and take them to the guest room, Bisi said, walking to the living room to watch TV. Morenike stood still, her heart heavy with pain. She could never have imagined that the friend she introduced to her home and her husband would betray her like this. Tears continued to fall from her eyes. The betrayal was too much to bear. Morenike felt betrayed and couldn't even cook again. She left the kitchen, feeling hot. Her heart was heavy and her mind was troubled. Everything around felt strange. The house she once called her home no longer felt warm. She couldn't believe that her own best friend, the one she trusted the most, was now carrying her husband's child. It felt like a bad dream that she wanted to wake up from. But no matter how much she blinked, the reality remained the same. She walked into the guest room and sat on the bed, staring at the wall. Her eyes were tired from crying, but her tears wouldn't stop. She thought of how happy she used to be with Femi. They had been best friends before they got married. He was her first love, her soulmate, the man she believed would always be by her side. They had made so many plans together, dreamed of building a happy home together, and growing old as best friends and lovers. Now, everything was falling apart before her eyes. Morenike remembered the day she introduced Bisi to Femi. She had been so excited for her best friend to meet her husband. She told Bisi everything about Femi, the way he loved her, the way he took care of her, and how he was the perfect husband. Bisi had smiled and nodded. But later that night, she told Morenike that she didn't like Femi. He has too much ego, Bisi said. He looked down on people. I don't like him at all. Morenike had laughed at that time, thinking it was just Bisi's way of being playful. After all, Bisi had always been blunt. She never hid her feelings, and she always said what was on her mind. Morenike had dismissed the comment and continued to talk about how lucky she was to have Femi as her husband. Looking back now, Morenike felt sick. When did Femi get Bisi pregnant? How did it even happen? The two of them didn't even like each other. They were never close. In fact, they hardly spoke whenever Bisi visited. Femi never hid his dislike for Bisi. He always told Morenike that Bisi was a bad influence. Morenike recalled the countless times Femi had told her to stop being friends with Bisi. I don't trust your friend. He had said many times. She's not a good person. I don't like the way she talks, the way she behaves, and the things she does. I don't want her around you. But Morenike had refused to listen. Bisi had been her best friend since their university days. They had gone through so much together. They had shared secrets, dreams, and struggles. Bisi had been there when Morenike's father died. She had comforted her through difficult times. How could she just cut her off because her husband didn't like her? Morenike had always believed that Femi just didn't understand Bisi. She had tried to defend her friend every time. She believed that Bisi's harsh words and strong personality made her misunderstood. She had told Femi that Bisi was a good person, that she just needed a little support. One night, Morenike had suggested that Femi should help Bisi get a job in his company. Darling, Bisi is a nice girl, Morenike had said. It's just this joblessness that is affecting her a bit. If we get her a job in your company, she will be the best girl you have ever seen. Femi had looked at her with disbelief. He had been silent for a moment before shaking his head. I can't employ your wayward friend in my company, he said. Morenike had been hurt by his words. She had argued with him, telling him that Bisi deserved a chance, that she was not as bad as he thought, but Femi had refused to listen. There are many people looking for jobs, he had said. I would rather employ someone else than give your friend a job. I don't just like her. Morenike had been frustrated. And you claim you love me? She had asked him angrily. Bisi needs this job. Please. Bisi will be on her best behavior. If you love me, then you should give her this job. Femi had stood up, shaking his head. Your friend doesn't need a job. He said, what she needs is to have some respect and morals built in her. I don't like your friend. Is that too much to comprehend? Morenike had been angry. She had wanted to continue arguing, but Femi had left the room and gone to the living room, refusing to listen to anything else. That had been just a few months ago. Now, the same Bisi was pregnant for him. Morenike couldn't understand it. Everything was confusing. If Femi hated Bisi so much, How did he end up in bed with her? It didn't make sense. She felt weak. Her head was pounding from too much thinking. She placed her hands on her stomach and sighed. She had been trying to get pregnant for 2 years, visiting different doctors, taking different tests, and trying different medications, yet nothing had worked. And now, Bisi was the one carrying Femi's child. Morenike couldn't understand why life was so unfair to her. She had done everything right. She had been a good wife, a supportive friend, and a loving woman. She had never cheated, never disrespected her husband, never done anything to deserve this betrayal. She sat on the bed, staring at nothing. She didn't know what to do next. She felt lost. She felt alone. The home she had built with love was now being taken away from her. The man she had loved with all her heart was now a stranger. Morenike closed her eyes, but sleep refused to come. Her mind was too troubled. The betrayal was too deep. She sat there in silence, wondering what the future held for her. Suddenly, Bisi walked into Morenike, deep in thought, and interrupted her thoughts. My friend, are you this lazy? When I came into the house, you were cooking. All of a sudden, you stopped cooking. Why? You don't want your husband's pregnant wife to eat? Why do you want to starve me? I don't know you were this stingy, Bisi told Morenike. Why? There are thousands of other men out there. Why my husband? Morenike asked. That is what you are getting wrong. I don't want thousands of men. I want only one man, Bisi said. And that man is my husband? Morenike asked. It's coincidental. Bisi, I brought you into my home. And how do you pay me back? Taking my husband away from me? Morenike said. Let's get this straight. I knew Femi way before you met him. What I don't understand is why he would choose to settle for a woman like you, Bisi said. A woman like me? Morenike asked. My darling, Femi was mine before he became yours. Let me get it straight to you. I have been dating Femi for the longest time. Back in our university days, before he woke up one morning and decided to break up with me. The next thing I saw was him proposing to you, Bisi said. But you never said anything. I have never seen him with you. Wait, was he your faceless boyfriend you never wanted me to know about? Morenike asked. I didn't want you to steal him from me, but you did anyway. I am just here to take him back, Bisi said, smiling and giggling. Is that a threat? Morenike asked. I don't know. Let's see, Bisi said and catwalked out of the guest room. Morenike sat on the bed crying. So Femi had known Bisi all this while. He was her ex and never said anything. Men are truly scum. Morenike soliloquized to herself. She did nothing all day. Rather, she just sat on the bed in the guest room where Bisola took her belongings to. She took some fruit juices. In the evening, she heard Femi's car horn, but she had already told herself not to go out and welcome him. He would have to come into the guest room to see what a stranger had made of his wife. Immediately, he entered the apartment. A few minutes later, he came into the guest room, raising his voice. Where are you? Where is that woman? Femi asked with an angry voice. How dare you cut the mother of my unborn child with a knife? Is it because she is pregnant? You want to kill her for me? You want to kill my baby? You witch, Femi said to Morenike. I don't know what you are talking about, Femi, Morenike replied. Do not give me that pretentious look again, Femi said and landed a hot slap on Morenike's cheek. Morenike quickly held her cheek and tears dropped down her face. That was the first time Femi had ever laid his hand on Morenike. You slapped me because of her, Morenike asked Femi. And if you annoy me one more time, I will do it again, Femi said. Just then, Bisi came into the guest room crying. Morenike was shocked and surprised as to how far her best friend would go to get her kicked out of her matrimonial home. Femi held Bisi and told her to calm down. You are here lazing around while a pregnant woman is cooking and cleaning, and all you did was cut her with a knife. If you ever make Bisi cry again, then be sure that you are leaving my house, Femi said as he took Bisi to the bedroom. What had gotten over her husband? This was not Femi. This is not Femi, her husband, Morenike said to herself. It was now certain that her marriage needed help. But who would help her? She held her cheek again because the slap hurt really bad. Morenike didn't believe that her husband just threatened to throw her out of the house because of Bisi, her best friend. That evening, she didn't come to the dining to eat, and her husband didn't care to check up on her to know why. Why was she suddenly invisible to the man who would do anything to be by her side? She heard giggling and laughter coming out from the master bedroom, which was, by the way, supposed to be the lawfully and rightfully hers. She sat on the bed crying out, waiting for the world to open and swallow her. This betrayal hurt each passing day. She remembers all the time she and Femi would play together in the shower. They were like inseparable. But she guessed this is life. Was this life? Did life just happen to her? She couldn't sleep that night because of the noise from Bisi and Femi. She just laid on the bed. The bed was soon soaked with her tears. She began to hate herself for being childless. The next morning, before she could wake up properly, Femi and Bisi was already standing next to her while she was still in the bed. So Morenike, I had thought it out with my wife, Bisi, and we had come to a conclusion that you should leave our house. Give us space so that our baby can grow in a healthy environment, Femi said, touching Bisi's belly. First of all, Femi, I am still your lawfully wedded wife, so you cannot address another woman as your wife while I'm still here. Second of all, where do you want me to go to? I don't know anyone in this city, and you know this, Femi, Morenike said. You can go back to your mother's house in the village. I don't care. And for being lawfully wedded wife, my lawyer will hand you the divorce papers very soon, Femi said. Femi, what you are doing to me is not fair. And for the fact that you told me to be a full housewife, I don't have a job. How do you want me to cope outside? Morenike asked Femi. About that, I'll be generous enough to transfer you some few cash that will keep you for a month or so. And I can also rent an apartment for you that the rent will expire in 6 months' time if you don't want to go to the village. So pack up. A cab guy will come out soon to take you, Femi said. Bisi kissed him and they both went out of the guest room. Morenike rubbed her hands on her eyes to be sure she wasn't dreaming. Is this some kind of sick joke? Minutes later, Femi was already prepared for work and he came back and saw Morenike still sitting on the bed. Are you deaf? What are you still doing on the bed? My friend, will you get out? Pack up your things and leave my house, Femi said harshly. Tears dropped down Morenike's eyes. If you stain my bedsheet with your crocodile tears, you will hate to see the other side of me. Stand up, Femi said. Morenike stood up and went out to pack. She wasn't even allowed to take her bath. The cab guy was already outside the gate waiting for her. Femi and Bisi watched her as she left the house. Morenike sat in the car, her eyes filled with tears. She could not stop crying. The pain in her heart was too much. She tried to hold it in. But the more she tried, the more the tears flowed down her face. The cab driver could hear her sobbing. At first, he wanted to ask her what was wrong, but he was afraid. She did not look like someone who wanted to talk. He decided to mind his own business, but after some time, the sound of her crying became too deep. He could no longer ignore it. Madam, what is it? One day everything will be all right, he said in a gentle voice. Morenike did not say a word. She continued crying. The cab driver kept looking at her through the front mirror. He felt sorry for her, but he did not know what else to say. He just hoped she would be fine. After a while, Morenike noticed that the driver was looking at her instead of focusing on the road. She wiped her tears and spoke for the first time. Mr. Man, I hope all is okay, she asked, trying to control her emotions. How do you mean, madam? The driver replied. Why are you not watching the road? Are you trying to kill us together? She asked. Madam, I am sorry. The driver quickly apologized. Please, just watch the road, she said, still sounding upset. The driver kept his eyes on the road and continued driving. So, where are we going to? Morenike asked after some time. The driver was surprised. Madam, are you not the one that booked me? You are supposed to know where you are going, he said, smiling. Morenike looked at him confused. What is funny? She asked. I didn't book you. I didn't book you. The cab driver suddenly stopped the car. He held the brake tightly and turned to look at her. Why are you stopping? Morenike asked, surprised. You didn't book me? The driver asked, looking worried. Then who did? Did I carry the wrong passenger? No, you carried the right person, Morenike answered. It's a long story. Just drive. The cab driver looked at her for a moment, then nodded. I carried the right person. Okay. He started the car and continued the journey. As they drove, Morenike slowly forgot about her sadness. The cab driver kept talking, telling funny stories and making jokes. She found herself smiling a little. The pain in her heart was still there, but at least she was not crying anymore. After some time, they arrived at her destination. The cab driver parked the car and helped her carry her things to her apartment. Madam, it looks like we will be neighbors, oh, the cab driver said. My house is not far from here. Really? Morenike asked, a little surprised. Yes, in case you need a cab service, you can always call me, the driver said. Sure, Morenike replied. She brought out her phone and gave it to him. Put your number here. The driver took the phone and typed his number. Save it as Obi the cabman, he said. You know, Obi is now a man. Morenike smiled a little and saved the number. Obi turned to go back to his car, but then he stopped. He turned around and looked at Morenike. Madam, I don't know what made you cry bitterly in the car today, he said, but I know within me that you will be fine. You will heal. Morenike nodded. Thank you for today, Obi, she said. She watched as he walked back to his car and drove off. Morenike stood in front of her apartment. She took a deep breath. She was about to start life afresh. She was about to lift herself up from where life had thrown her. One thing she had learned from Obi while in his cab was that crying does not bring back anything. For months, Obi kept checking on Morenike and encouraging her to find a job. One day, while in her bedroom, she heard a knock on the door. She quickly went to check. It was Obi, her cab driver. He had tested him earlier to take her to a company where she hoped to find a job. It had been 3 months since she moved into the apartment. She had been searching for jobs without success. She was beginning to lose hope until Obi told her about a job opportunity he heard from one of his passengers. He decided to give it a try. For the past 3 months, she hadn't heard from Femi. He hadn't even sent the divorce papers. She quickly followed Obi to the company. When she arrived, she saw other people waiting for their interviews. So she joined them and waited for her turn. Obi left to pick up other passengers. After the interview, Morenike tried calling Obi, but he didn't answer. She took another taxi home. Later in the evening, Obi called to check if she was home. When she said yes, he came over. Obi asked about the interview. Morenike stayed quiet for a moment before suddenly screaming with excitement. She got the job. Obi was happy for her. He told her he had never seen her this happy since she moved to the neighborhood. He then asked when she would start work. Morenike said she would resume the next day. Obi suggested they celebrate. He asked if she had any drinks. Morenike said she had juice and brought it out with two glasses. Obi asked if she had something stronger. Morenike said she didn't need alcohol, but Obi insisted that she deserved to celebrate properly. After thinking about it, she agreed that a little wouldn't hurt. There was music playing in the background. She told Obi she would have just one glass. One glass turned into two, then three, and then more. They drank, danced, and laughed. Morenike had so much fun. The next morning, Morenike woke up and turned to her side. She saw Obi lying next to her. She screamed, "No! No! No! What have I done?" She shook Obi awake. Obi opened his eyes and asked what was wrong. Morenike, still in shock, asked if they had slept together. Obi, confused, asked what she meant. She repeated the question. Obi looked under the bedsheet and saw he was naked. Morenike held her head, trying to process what had happened. This was not her. This was not the kind of woman she wanted to be. Obi sighed and rubbed his forehead. He said they must have had too much to drink. Morenike was furious. She blamed Obi for insisting on alcohol. She didn't want to drink, but he had pressured her. Now, look at what had happened. Then she remembered her new job. She grabbed her phone and checked the time. It was almost 8 a.m. She was supposed to be at work early, and now she was late on her first day. She turned to Obi. "You need to leave." Obi, still confused, asked her why she was suddenly chasing him away. Morenike told him she needed to get ready for work. She rushed into the bathroom, turned on the tap, and stared at herself in the mirror. She couldn't believe she had just slept with her cab driver. This was not her plan. This was not how things were supposed to go. She brushed her teeth quickly, but her mind was racing. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Obi wasn't a bad guy. He was good looking and kind. And Femi had moved on with BC. So why did she feel guilty? Was this really how she wanted to move on? She shook her head and pushed the thought away. She had to focus on work. After dressing up, she realized she was still late. She had no choice but to go to Obi's apartment and ask him to drop her at work. It was her first time going there. She knocked twice, no answer. She knocked again, still no response. She tried the door. It wasn't locked. She pushed it open and stepped inside. She called out, "Obi!" Then a beautiful light-skinned woman walked out of the kitchen. The woman looked at her and asked, "Can I help you?" Morenike was shocked. Before she could respond, she heard Obi's voice from the bedroom. "Who is at the door?" Morenike's heart started racing. Then, Obi walked out wearing only a singlet and boxers. He smiled when he saw her. "Morenike, good morning." Morenike greeted him, but her eyes were on the woman. The woman looked at Obi, waiting for an explanation. Obi smiled. "Oh, this is Sandra, my girlfriend." Then he turned to Sandra and said, "Sandra, meet Morenike, my biggest client." Sandra gave Morenike a small smile, but it didn't feel real. Morenike felt her heart drop. She had spent the night with Obi and now she was standing in front of his girlfriend. She quickly said, "I just came so you could drop me at work, but I see you are busy. so I'll find another way. Obi said he could quickly get dressed and take her, but Sandra placed her hand on Obi's chest and said, "Don't worry, babe. We have other plans today." Then, in front of Morenike, she leaned in and kissed Obi. Morenike felt like crying. She quickly turned and walked out of the apartment. What was wrong with her? Why was love not working for her? First, Femi left her for BC. Now, the man she had just spent the night with had a girlfriend. As she walked back, her mind was filled with so many thoughts. Then her phone rang. She checked the number. It was unknown. She hesitated, then answered. A voice on the other end asked, "Is this Morenike Adebayo?" "Yes," she answered. The person continued, "We've been trying to reach you since last night. Your husband, Femi Adebayo, was in a car accident. We need you at the hospital." Morenike froze. Her heart pounded. The caller said they would send the hospital address and ended the call. Morenike stood there, shocked and confused. Why was this happening now? Why didn't they call BC instead? Why her? Everything was happening at once. Her new job, a terrible mistake, and now her husband in the hospital. She didn't know what to do, but after standing there for a while, she made up her mind. She was going to the hospital. Even though Femi had moved on, she knew she had to go. Morenike hurried to the hospital as fast as she could. Her heart was beating fast. She did not know what to expect. The call she received had changed everything. Even though she was no longer living with Femi, they were still legally married. She knew she had to be there for him. When she reached the hospital, she quickly asked to see the doctor. The doctor led her to his office. He asked her some questions about Femi and their relationship. She explained everything, the separation, his decision to marry another woman, and how they had not spoken for months. The doctor listened carefully and then told her that Femi had been drinking before the accident. Morenike sighed. She did not know why he was drinking, but she felt sad that he had ended up in such a condition. After talking to the doctor, she was taken to Femi's hospital room. She saw him lying on the bed with his eyes closed. He looked so weak. She did not expect to feel so emotional, but as she stood by his side, tears rolled down her cheeks. She thought she had moved on. She thought she no longer cared. But at that moment, she realized she still did. She touched his hand gently and brushed his cheek. As she did, a tear fell from her eyes onto his face. Just then, he coughed lightly. Morenike gasped as his eyes slowly opened. He looked at her, and his eyes filled with tears. He whispered something softly. She leaned in to listen. Femi started to speak, but his voice was weak. He said things she never expected to hear. He admitted he had made a mistake. He said he had been blind to the truth. He thought a child would bring him happiness, but now he realized he had lost the most important thing, his peace. Morenike listened, her heart heavy. He asked for her forgiveness. She wanted to say something, but just then, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. It was Obi. She rejected the call. Femi continued speaking, but Morenike's phone rang again. It was Obi calling for the second time. She ignored it. Femi noticed and asked who was calling her. She simply said it was no one important. He looked at her, but she did not explain further. Morenike stayed by Femi's side throughout his time in the hospital. She helped the nurses take care of him. She watched over him as he slept. She made sure he ate his meals and took his medication. Even though things had been bad between them, she could not abandon him now. She knew that, deep down, she still cared for him. After 7 days, the doctor said Femi was ready to go home. He was discharged in a wheelchair, but the doctor assured them that, with time, he would walk again. Morenike arranged for a ride to take him home. When they arrived, She helped him settle in. She made sure he was comfortable. Then she went to the kitchen to prepare a meal. Femi ate the food she made. Afterward, he took a bath and changed into a fresh clothes. They sat in the living room watching a TV show. As they watched, something had been on Morenike's mind. She had not asked about Bisola yet, but now she felt it was time. She turned to Femi and asked about her. Femi's face darkened. He called Bisola a thief. He said he had discovered the truth. The pregnancy was a lie. She had only been using him for money. She was taking his money and giving it to the man who was truly responsible for her pregnancy. When he found out, he sent her away. He called her a Jezebel who had tried to destroy everything he and Morenike had built over the years. Morenike listened to him. She did not say much. She had suspected Bisola was not honest, but she never imagined it was this bad. Femi then turned to Morenike. His voice was filled with regret. He promised that what had happened before would never happen again. He said he would love her with all his heart no matter what. Morenike and Femi lived peacefully together. She took care of him, cooked his meals, cleaned the house, and made sure he was comfortable. She supported him as he recovered from his accident. Every day, she helped him with his exercises. She encouraged him to be strong. She did everything a loving wife should do. 2 months passed since Femi returned home from the hospital. He was getting better. He could move around with little support. His mood had improved. He smiled more often. He felt grateful for Morenike's care. He knew he had almost lost her, but now she was still here with him. One afternoon, Morenike was in the kitchen preparing lunch. The smell of the food filled the house. She was stirring a pot of soup when suddenly she felt dizzy. The room spun around her. She held onto the counter for support. Then a wave of nausea hit her. She ran to the toilet and threw up. Femi was in the living room when he saw her rush out. He became worried. She had not been herself for some days. She looked weak and tired. She had been sleeping more than usual. She did not eat as much as before. He knew something was wrong. Without wasting time, Femi called the family doctor to come over. Morenike told him she was fine, but he did not listen. He wanted to be sure. He wanted to know why she was feeling sick. A few minutes later, the doctor arrived. He checked Morenike. He asked her some questions. He looked at her eyes carefully. Then he smiled. He said he had a strong feeling about what was happening. He said if his suspicion was right, there would be a reason to celebrate. Femi did not understand. He wanted to know what the doctor meant. The doctor then said something shocking. Morenike was pregnant. But to confirm, they had to go to the hospital for a proper test. Femi was confused. He tried to speak, but his words failed him. He thought about it. He knew he had not been with Morenike in a long time, but he did not want the doctor to notice his reaction. He kept calm. He agreed to go for the test. Morenike went with Femi and the doctor to the hospital. The test was done. They waited for the result. After some minutes, the doctor came out smiling. He said he was right. Morenike was pregnant. He congratulated Femi and shook his hand. Morenike pushed Femi's wheelchair to the car. She drove them home. She knew the moment they reached home, Femi would have many questions. She prepared herself. She knew the truth would break his heart. The moment they got inside, Femi could no longer keep quiet. He asked how it was possible. He reminded her that they had not been together for 6 months. He reminded her that even after the accident, they had not been intimate for 2 months. He could not understand how she was 2 months pregnant. Morenike took a deep breath. She knew there was no way to hide it. She had to tell him the truth. She reminded him that before his accident, they were living apart. Their divorce was being processed. That night, she had a drink. She made a mistake. She had a one night stand. Femi listened, his heart sinking. He asked if it was unprotected. He could not believe what he was hearing. He wanted to know who the man was. He needed to know the truth. At that moment, Morenike's phone started ringing. The sound filled the silent room. She looked at the screen. It was Obi, the cab driver. She did not want to answer. She was afraid. Femi stared at her. Then he remembered something. He thought back to the hospital. He remembered the calls she kept ignoring. He connected the dots. He realized something shocking. He asked if Obi was the man. Morenike did not say a word. She only nodded. Silence filled the room. Femi had no words. His heart was shattered. The phone kept ringing. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Time went on. Morenike's phone kept ringing that night. The sound filled the room, making the silence between her and Femi even heavier. They stared at each other, their eyes locked in unspoken thoughts. The ringing continued. Finally, Morenike took a deep breath and picked up the call. She placed the phone to her ear. Her voice was firm but tired. She asked Obi what he wanted. She told him to stay with his wife. She reminded him that what happened between them was a mistake. She had moved on, but Obi was not ready to let go. He told her that the woman she saw with him that day was not his wife. He explained their relationship had ended. He insisted that what happened between them was not a mistake. He had tried to forget, but he could not. Morenike refused to listen. She told him again to move on. She did not want to hear anything else. She had no space in her life for his words. She was back with her husband. Before she could say more, Femi reached for the phone. His patience has run out. He spoke directly into the receiver. He told Obi to leave Morenike alone. His voice was strong, leaving no room for argument. Then, without waiting for a response, he ended the call. Morenike looked at Femi. She was surprised. She asked why he had done that. She told him he was too harsh. She reminded him that Obi would eventually understand on his own. Femi shook his head. He told her there was no need to waste time on unnecessary conversations. He had already made up his mind about what he wanted. He was not going to stand aside and watch another man pull her away. Then he spoke words that made Morenike pause. He admitted that he had not been a good husband. He confessed that he had made mistakes, but he was ready to change. He wanted to make things right. He wanted to be the man she deserved. He told her that he loved her. He asked her if she could not see it. Morenike's heart pounded. She did not know what to say. She was carrying another man's child. She did not think they could continue as husband and wife. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could complete her sentence, Femi placed a finger on her lips. He told her to stop talking. He told her they would figure it out together. Then, he began to tell her about the months they had spent apart. He described how hard it was for him. He had stayed with her best friend, BC, but life was not the same. He missed her every single day. He missed her smile. He missed her every day. He missed the way she made the house feel warm. He told her that when they separated, he had to eat outside every day. He had no one to prepare his favorite meals. He had no one to share his thoughts with. He realized that she completed him. He admitted that he had made a mistake in the past, but now he wanted to fix it. He was asking for another chance. Morenike listened to every word, but inside her, doubt remained. She reminded him that her mistake was too big. She told him that she too had done something wrong, and he too was at fault. Femi did not agree. He told her that it was not a mistake. He said that everything happened for a reason. He told her that it was destiny. Morenike was confused. She asked him what he meant. Then Femi took a deep breath. He hesitated. His words came out slowly. He told her that after finding out Bisi was not pregnant for him, he became curious. He wanted answers. He needed to understand why things had happened the way they did. So he decided to get tested. He wanted to know the truth about himself. He tried to continue speaking, but his words became stuck. He stammered. His voice grew shaky. Morenike waited. She could see that whatever he was about to say would change everything. Morenike looked at Femi, waiting for him to speak. She could see the hesitation in his eyes. He opened his mouth, but could not find the right words. He took a deep breath and finally spoke. He told her the truth. He told her that he was impotent. He had just found out after going for the test. The words felt heavy as they left his mouth. His voice was shaky. Tears filled his eyes. Morenike was shocked. She could not believe what she had just heard. She had spent so much time blaming herself for not getting pregnant. She had felt like a failure. She had cried in secret. She had believed something was wrong with her. Now, she realized that all this time she had been carrying a burden that was never hers to bear. She looked at Femi. Her emotions were mixed. She felt relieved, but she also felt anger. She remembered how she had hated herself when Femi told her that Bisola was expecting his child. She had thought she was the problem. She had thought she was not enough for her husband. She spoke her mind. She told Femi how much pain she had gone through. She told him how she had cried, how she had suffered, and how she had felt broken. Femi listened. He felt guilty. He wished he had known the truth earlier. He wished he had not allowed Morenike to suffer alone. He apologized. He promised that he would never let her go through such pain again. There was silence in the house. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Morenike placed her hands on her stomach. She thought about the life growing inside her. She turned to Femi, who was still seated on the wheelchair, his face wet with tears. She asked him what they should do next. Femi did not hesitate. He told her that they would keep the baby. The child would be theirs. They would raise the baby together. They would be a family. Morenike was unsure. She reminded him that Obi was the father. She did not think it was right to keep such a big secret from him. Femi disagreed. He said Obi would never know. Only the two of them would share this secret. Morenike still had doubts. She was not sure if this was the best decision. Femi reassured her. He told her he loved her. He told her he loved the baby she was carrying. He told her that together they could do this. Then something happened. Something that made Morenike gasp. Femi stood up from his wheelchair. He reached out and held Morenike's hands. Morenike's eyes widened. She could not believe what she was saying. She asked Femi if he could really stand. Femi smiled. He told her he could stand for his family now. Morenike felt her heart race. She knew that Femi truly meant his words. At last, she made her decision. She agreed to keep the baby. She agreed to stay with her husband. Femi was overjoyed. He pulled her into a tight embrace. He held her as if he never wanted to let her go. It was not an easy choice for Morenike, but she made it anyway. From that moment, they chose to live as one happy family. Morenike knew she had to make a final change. She changed her phone number. She did not want to have any more contact with Obi. She did not want to receive any more of his calls. She was ready to move forward. She was ready to start a new chapter with Femi. Femi flew Morenike out of the country so that she could have the baby in a place where no one could ask questions. He wanted to make sure that Obi, the real father of the child, never suspected anything. 5 years passed after the birth of Olu, the son of Morenike. Olu grew into a smart and curious boy. He spent the 5 years of his life in the US, far away from the truth of his past. He loved learning new things and asking many questions. His laughter filled the house, and his eyes always sparkled with excitement. Femi visited them as often as he could. He loved Olu as if he were his own child. When Olu started speaking, the first word that came from his mouth was Dada. That moment made Femi the happiest man alive. He felt complete. He believed his mother would be so proud of the man he had become. She was now a grandmother, though she did not know the full story about the child. When Olu's fifth birthday was near, Femi traveled again to the US to celebrate with them. He had something important to discuss with Morenike. He told her that it was time for Olu to return home to Nigeria. He wanted the boy to know his roots. He wanted him to understand the Yoruba culture, the language, the traditions. Olu had spent all his life in a foreign land. It was time for him to see where he truly came from. But Olu was not happy about the decision. Even though he was only 5, he understood what was happening. He had friends he did not want to leave behind. He had a life he had loved. He asked his mother what would happen to his friends. Morenike assured him that he would make new friends in Nigeria, wonderful friends who would love him just as much. But Olu was not convinced. He was especially sad about leaving his best friend, Jamiel. He told his mother that no friend could replace Jamiel, but there was nothing he could do. The decision had already been made. Femi wanted their return to Nigeria to be quiet. He did not want too many people knowing about their arrival. He wanted to settle down without any distraction. But his mother had a different plan. She refused to let her grandson arrive without a proper welcome. She reminded Femi that Olu was a special child and that nothing was too much for him. Femi tried to convince her otherwise. He told her over the phone that he did not want a big celebration. He did not want too many people around. His mother finally agreed. She promised him that it would be a small welcome party, nothing too elaborate. The next day, they boarded a flight back to Nigeria. The journey was smooth. Olu looked out of the window, watching the clouds and the vast sky. When they landed, a driver was already waiting for them. Olu looked around, his small face full of curiosity. He asked his mother where they were. She told him they had arrived Lagos, Nigeria. Olu was surprised. He repeated the name of the country as if trying to understand it better. His mother assured him that he would love it here. As they drove towards their house, everything seemed peaceful. The streets were lively with people going about their daily activities. Cars moved along the roads, and street vendors sold food and goods. It was different from what Olu was used to, but it was beautiful in its own way. When they finally reached the gate of their house, everything looked quiet. Femi was surprised. He turned to Morenike and told her that his mother had truly listened to him this time. Morenike agreed. She also thought there would be a large crowd waiting for them. But the moment the car stopped inside the compound, something unexpected happened. A loud voice erupted from the crowd. Surprised, an unaccountable number of people shouted in unison. Friends, family members, and strangers filled the compound. The quietness they had seen before was only a trick. Femi and Morenike stayed in the car for a few seconds, shocked. Olu looked at the people through the window. His small face was filled with confusion. He turned to his mother and asked why so many people were there. It was not his birthday, so why was there a celebration? Morenike smiled and told him that the people were there to welcome him home. Olu was still unsure. He asked if this would happen every day. Morenike laughed softly and assured him that it was only for a special occasion. She explained that it was his first time in Nigeria and his grandmother wanted to welcome him the proper Yoruba way. Then the music started. Drummers began to beat their drums in rhythm. Singers raised their voices in the beautiful Yoruba songs. The entire compound was filled with excitement. Femi and Morenike stepped out of the car, and the noise from the crowd grew louder. Everyone was happy to see them. The excitement filled the air. Mama rushed forward, looking around with joy in her eyes. She stretched out her arms. "Where's my grandchild?" she asked with excitement. She lifted Olu into her arms, holding him close. She looked at his face carefully, smiling widely. "You have grown so big," she said with pride. "How are you, my son?" Olu felt small in her arms. He had never seen this many people before, and everything felt different. But Mama's warm smile made him feel safe. She carried him around the compound, introducing him to different people. "His name is Olu," she said proudly as she announced. She took him to meet her friends one by one. They all smiled at him, some touching his cheeks, some shaking their hands. After a while, Mama handed him over to one of his aunts. She then walked into the house to get something. Femi followed her quickly. His face was serious. He looked around at the large number of the people in the compound. He was not happy. "Mom, I thought we agreed on a few guests," he said in a low voice. Mama waved her hand dismissively. "Keep your voice down," she whispered back. Morenike walked around the compound, smiling politely as she greeted different people. Many were women dressed in uniform. Some she recognized, some she did not. Mama continued speaking. "You know I invited my own guests, and your aunties, Ronke and the others, also invited their own guests." She clapped her hands together, smiling with pride. "But in any case, we have to celebrate. Today is your day. I prepared plenty of delicious food." The music played loudly, and the sound of talking and laughter filled the air. Morenike kept moving around, greeting different people. Then a voice called out, "Hey, congratulations!" It was a deep voice, a voice she had not heard in years. She froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. Slowly, she turned around. Her eyes widened in shock. It was Obi. He stood there, smiling at her, holding a red cup in his hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked quickly, her voice shaking. He held out a neatly wrapped gift box and placed it in her hands. "I was invited to your welcome party. I couldn't miss it," he said casually. "I brought a gift for your son." Morenike swallowed hard. She could not believe what was happening. Her hands felt sweaty as she held the gift box. She did not know what to say. At that moment, Femi noticed them from across the compound. He saw his wife standing with a man he did not recognize. But something was wrong. She looked uneasy. She looked afraid. Femi did not like it. He walked straight to them. He stood beside his wife and looked at Obi. "Babe, who is this?" he asked, his eyes searching her face. Morenike did not hesitate. "His name is Obi. He's just a cab driver," she said quickly. Femi's heart stopped for a second. A strange feeling washed over him, a strong wave of fear and realization. The moment he heard the word cab driver, his body tensed up. He knew, he knew at once. This was the real father of his 5-year-old son. Obi took a slow sip from his red cup. "I stopped driving cabs a few years ago," he said, his eyes never leaving Femi's face. Femi clenched his jaw. He did not want a scene. He turned to Obi. "You will excuse us. I want to show my wife to the rest of our guests," he said, taking Morenike's hand firmly. He pulled her away from Obi, leading her through the crowd. But then, Obi spoke again. "Your child, Olu, looks handsome. By the way," he said casually. Femi and Morenike stopped walking. They turned slightly to look at him. Then they looked at each other. Their hearts pounded in fear. Their hands felt cold. Their bodies stiffened. This was a disaster. This was a mistake. This was a party they wished had never happened. Femi could not sit still. His heart pounded in his chest. The music was loud, people were laughing, and the party was lively, but none of that mattered to him. All he could think about was Obi. Obi was here. The real father of his child was standing right there, in the middle of his welcome ceremony. Femi's hands felt cold. His thoughts were all over the place. He wanted the party to end. He wanted everyone to leave. He needed time to think. He had to come up with a plan. Without saying a word, he turned and walked inside. He could not pretend to be happy anymore. Morenike noticed. She followed him. Inside the bedroom, Femi stood with his back against the wall, taking deep breaths. Morenike stepped in and closed the door. She knew what was wrong. She could see the worry on his face. What is he doing here? Femi finally asked, his voice low but firm. Morenike folded her arms. She was confused. How would I know? She replied. He just got into the country. Femi looked at her closely. So you are telling me you have not been talking to him? He asked, his voice shaking a little. Morenike's eyes widened. Why would I? She asked, stepping closer to him. Wait, Femi, are you accusing me of something? Femi sighed. No, I'm not, he said. I just don't want that man to take my child from me. His voice cracked a little. I have given Olu everything, he continued. I don't want to wake up one morning and hear that my son will no longer call me daddy. Morenike reached out and held his hands. She could feel his pain. She could feel his fear. You are overthinking, she said softly. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight. Femi held her back. For a moment, they stood there in silence. Morenike understood him. She knew what this meant for him. The day Femi found out he was impotent, his world shattered. It broke him completely. He never told anyone, not even his closest friends. He was too ashamed. He did not want to think about what would happen if people found out. His heart was heavy with secrets. Morenike did not want him to feel alone. She wanted to be there for him. After a long silence, Femi finally spoke. Where is Olu? He asked, stepping back from the hug. Morenike smiled a little. You know Mama, she said. He's still introducing him to everyone. Femi took a deep breath. It's better we go outside and continue with the party, he said. They walked out together. The moment they stepped outside, Femi's heart dropped. He stopped in his tracks. His eyes widened. There in the middle of the party was Obi. He was carrying Olu. He was laughing. He was playing with him. Olu looked happy in his arms. Femi swallowed hard. He took a step forward. Hmm? Femi said, clearing his throat. Obi turned and looked at him. Olu, would you like to eat now? Femi said, forcing a smile. Obi smiled back. Right, said, handing the child over. Femi passed Olu to Morenike. Take him inside, he said quickly. Morenike held Olu close and turned to leave. Before she could walk away, Obi spoke. How old is he? Morenike paused. She glanced at Femi, then looked back at Obi. 4, she said. He will be 4 in a few months. Obi raised an eyebrow. A small smile formed on his lips. I could have sworn he was 5, he said. Morenike's hand tightened around Olu. She did not say another word. She walked away quickly. Obi turned back to Femi. You have a handsome son, he said. Femi forced another smile. He muted and turned away. He needed answers. He needed to know how this man got here. He walked straight to his mother. She was laughing with some guests. He touched her shoulder lightly, making her turn towards him. Who invited that man? He asked in a whisper. Mama looked at Obi. Obi took another sip from his drink. Mama smiled. Oh, that will be my doctor, she said casually. Femi's heart stopped. Doctor? He asked, his eyes wide. Yes, doctor, she repeated. She took another sip of her drink and continued. I should introduce you to him. She said, He's very good. Femi shook his head quickly. There will be no need for that, he said, turning around. He walked away without saying another word. The music played, people laughed, food was shared, and the party went on. But Femi and Morenike could not enjoy it. They were the only ones who wanted the night to end. Finally, the welcome party was over. One by one, the guests left. The compound became quiet again. Mama stayed back. She would spend the night in their house. Femi could not sleep. Morenike could not relax. The night had changed everything. Femi and Morenike sat in the bedroom, their minds troubled. The voices of the party guests outside felt distant. Femi ran his hand over his face, deep in thought. He could not understand what was happening. Morenike stood in front of the mirror, wiping off her makeup. She was just as confused. Wait, what? She said, turning to Femi. Doctor? Well, he was just a cab driver. Femi shook his head. I am as surprised as you are, he admitted. I never once thought he was a doctor. A strange feeling settled in his chest. He did not like this. He did not trust this. I feel really uncomfortable about this whole thing, he continued. I think it's better we fly back to the US immediately. Before Morenike could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Morenike paused. Come in, she called out. The door opened, and Femi's mother stepped in. Olu is sleeping, she said. Just wanted to let you know. Thank you, Mommy, Morenike replied with a small smile. Mama looked at them both, her sharp eyes studying their faces. She crossed her arms. She said. It's not that I'm eavesdropping, no, but do you want to return to the US? Femi's mouth opened in surprise. Mom, that's eavesdropping, he said. Mama ignored him. You just got here, she said. Any issues? Sort them out here. You brought Olu here to learn the pure Yoruba way, and now you are planning to take him back? She shook her head. Even though he's a furniture, she said. Furniture has a base now. She raised her hand. Allow me to spend time with my grandson, she added, turning to leave. Femi and Morenike exchanged glances. They were speechless. The days passed. Slowly, everything started to feel normal again. Mama was still living with them. They went out to look for a good school for Olu. Their minds relaxed, at least for a while. One afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Morenike went to open it. The moment she saw who it was, her breath caught. Her heart skipped a beat. Obi stood at the entrance looking calm. What are you doing here? Morenike asked quickly. She looked around. Femi was not home. Obi smiled slightly. Mama invited me over to check up on her, he said. From inside the house, Mama's voice called out. Is that my doctor? She appeared at the doorway and beamed. I invited him over, Mama said. Morenike had no choice but to step aside. Obi walked in. Mama welcomed him warmly. Dr. Obi, please give me 1 second to finish up something quickly upstairs, Mama said. With that, she left the living room. Morenike watched her go. The moment Mama disappeared upstairs, she turned to follow. Before she could take another step, Obi spoke. Our son really looked handsome. Morenike froze. Her foot stopped on the staircase. She turned slowly to face him. Excuse me, he said. Obi leaned back on the chair, his eyes studying her. You know, he said, when one looks deeply, he can tell that the boy got my eyes. His voice was calm, but there was something behind it. Morenike's hand clenched the staircase railing. I was really curious, Obi continued. I pulled some of his hairs. Her stomach tightened. His next word made her blood run cold. I did a DNA test, he said. He's my son. Obi leaned forward slightly. You hid my son from me for 5 years, he asked. Morenike's head spun. Her knees felt weak. She held onto the staircase, unable to speak. Morenike stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She could not believe what she had just heard. Obi knew. He had found out the truth about the baby. Her mind raced as she tried to think of what to say. What do you mean? How? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Obi did not take his eyes off her. What do you mean, how? He repeated, his voice filled with pain. Why would you do this to me? He asked, stepping closer. Morenike swallowed hard. She felt like the walls were closing in. You had a fiancé, she said quickly, trying to justify herself. Obi shook his head. You didn't even allow me to explain myself, he said. Morenike clenched her fists. What we had was a mistake, she said firmly. Obi let out a bitter laugh. A mistake? He asked. A mistake that led to the birth of a baby. His voice was filled with anger. My baby, he said, pointing towards the staircase. You hid him from me for 5 good years, he said. 5 whole years, he repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. How did you even sleep at night? He asked. Morenike felt her throat tighten. She could not answer him. She could not explain herself. She did not even know what to say. What are you going to do? She finally asked, her voice shaky. Before Obi could respond, footsteps echoed from downstairs. Morenike and Obi turned quickly. It was Mama. She walked into the living room, smiling. Hey, doctor. Sorry for keeping you waiting, she said warmly. Obi quickly adjusted his glasses. It's no problem, he replied, his voice calm again. Mama turned to Morenike and frowned. Hey, Morenike, why didn't you give our guest anything? She asked. Morenike forced a smile. I was just about to do that, Mama, she replied. She quickly walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of wine. She placed it in front of Obi without looking at him. Then, without another word, she turned and left. She went straight to her room. She needed to be alone. She needed to think. Obi stayed in the living room with Mama. He examined her, checking her health carefully. Mama smiled as he walked, chatting with him happily. When he was done, Mama handed him her phone. Help me check something on this phone, she said. Obi took it and did what she asked. Then after a few more minutes, he stood up. Thank you, doctor, Mama said as he prepared to leave. Anytime, Ma, Obi replied. Then he walked out of the house. The doctor closed behind him, and the house was quiet again. Morenike sat on the bed, staring at nothing. Her hands were shaking. Her heart felt heavy. Her mind was spinning with thoughts. Obi knew. What was he going to do? Would he take her son away from her? Would he tell Femi? Her whole body felt cold. She wrapped her arms around herself and squeezed her eyes shut. She wished this was a bad dream. That evening, Mama noticed something was wrong. She sat on the couch, watching Morenike closely. Her daughter-in-law looked uneasy. She kept rubbing her hands together. She could not sit still. Mama frowned. My daughter, is everything okay? She finally asked. Morenike quickly looked up. She forced a smile. Yes, Mama, she said. But Mama was not convinced. You have been restless since the doctor left, he said. You don't look like yourself, she added. Are you feeling sick? Do you need medicine? Morenike shook her head quickly. No, Ma, I'm fine, she said. It's just stress, she added. Just settling in and adjusting to things, she said with another forced smile. Mama studied her face. Something was wrong, but she did not push further. That night, Femi came home from work. They all ate dinner together, but Mama kept watching Morenike. She was not eating much. She was not talking much. When dinner was over, Morenike excused herself and went to the bedroom. Mama waited until Femi was alone. Then she spoke. I don't think your wife is okay, she said. Femi looked up, surprised. You should ask her what the problem is, Mama. She continued. Femi frowned. She told me she was fine, he said. Mama shook her head. She's not fine. She said firmly. Femi sighed. He nodded. Okay, Mama, he said. Then he got up and went to the bedroom. Mama watched him go. Then she retired to her own room. Femi entered the bedroom. He stopped when he saw Morenike. She was sitting on the bed, lost in thought. She did not even notice him enter. Babe, are you okay? He asked. Obi visited, Morenike said. She was trying real hard to control her tears. What? What did he come to do? Obi asked, hoping not to hear the worst. Mama invited him to come examine her body. Morenike said. Femi let out a relieved breath. That's okay, Femi said. He knows. Morenike said. What? How? Femi asked, anxiously. He did a DNA. She said. DNA? How? Femi asked. That day at the party, he pulled some of Olu's hair from the test. She said. That bastard, Femi said. I mean, Olu is his child. He had every right to know, right? Morenike asked, confused. He was not supposed to know. Babe, the whole world will laugh at me knowing that I am an impotent. That is not good for my name, my family's name. It will kill my mother. I am an only child. Babe, Femi said restlessly. What are we going to do now? Morenike asked. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Femi asked repeatedly. Just then, a message pops into Femi's phone. I have an offer for you. He read the message. It was from a new number. He picked up his phone and dialed the number. Hello, who is this? Femi asked with fear. The real father of your son. The person replied, and immediately he knew it was Obi. Meet me in my house tomorrow. I will send you my address, Obi said and hung up the call. Why is this happening now? Morenike said in a very frustrated tone. Morenike and Femi became restless. Their hearts beat fast as Obi told them to come over to his house. Just as Femi dropped the phone, another message popped in. Obi had just sent the address. Morenike turned to Femi, her hands shaking. She could not think straight. What do we do? She asked. Femi sighed deeply. I don't know, he admitted. He looked down at the phone again. And he is demanding we go there together dressed like we are going for a dinner date. Morenike felt her stomach turn. Let's involve the police, she suggested. Femi quickly shook his head. We can't involve the police, he said. What are we going to tell them? That we are hiding his child from him? Morenike looked away. I don't know, Femi, she whispered. I'm just suggesting. Femi rubbed his forehead. His thoughts were everywhere. Maybe we should have just stayed in the US. He muted. Morenike looked at him sadly. We can't keep hiding, she said. I'm tired of hiding. It's best we just go and hear what he has to say. Femi turned to her. He could not believe what he was hearing. The rest of the night was cold and unsteady for Femi. He could not sleep. His mind would not let him rest. The next day in the evening, Morenike and Femi got dressed for the dinner. It was time. Before they left, Olu stood in front of them smiling. Femi bent down and kissed him on the forehead. Morenike pecked him gently. I love you, Olu said softly. Femi and Morenike looked at him. Their hearts were heavy. Then they left the house. The drive to Obi's house was quiet. No one said a word. Their thoughts were louder than any conversation. When they arrived, Femi reached out and pressed the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. Obi stood there smiling. You both look dazzling this evening, he said. Look at my favorite couple. His voice was smooth. Come inside my humble home, he said. Femi walked in with Morenike. He could feel his hands sweating. Why are we here? He asked anxiously. Obi laughed. Hey bro, don't kill the mood, he said. You just got here. We should eat first. Femi frowned. You're not hungry, he replied. Obi chuckled. Come on, he said. I know you aren't thinking I poisoned your food. I mean, I'll be dishing out my own food as well. Femi said nothing. Morenike sat still. Obi served himself. He took a bite of his food. You both should eat, he said. Still, they did not move. Minutes passed. Then Morenike slowly dished a plate for Femi. She took another for herself. They ate. Obi watched them. When they were done, he picked up a bottle of wine. He popped it open. To family, he said. He poured into 3 glasses. He took a sip. Then he looked at Morenike. Why? He asked. Morenike suddenly coughed. She let out a heavy choke. Femi patted her back. He quickly handed her water. She took a sip. Obi leaned forward. Why did you hide my son from me? He asked again. Morenike swallowed hard. She looked down at the table. I mean, we weren't an item, she said. I didn't want to bother you. I saw that you had a fiancé. Obi sighed. She left me, he said. Yes, Sandra left me. Morenike's eyes widened. She found out I had cancer. Obi continued. I was dying. She didn't have any reason to stay, and I don't blame her. Morenike's heart sank. Cancer? She asked in shock. Yes, Obi nodded. Stage IV. His voice was low. The day I was decorated a doctor, my parents were coming to celebrate with me. They had an accident. I couldn't save them. It broke me down. His eyes looked distant. Since I couldn't save my own parents, I concluded there was no need to be a doctor. I left everything. I became a cab driver. I just wanted to escape. He paused. Then I met you, he said. Even though I had Sandra at that time, I knew it was crazy, but I loved you. His voice was almost a whisper. But I noticed you still loved your husband. His eyes darkened. When you left the country, it broke me down. I tried to understand why. His fingers tapped the table. One day, a friend recommended me to Mama. She needed a personal doctor. Obi sighed. When I saw Femi's picture in the house, I asked about you. She told me you had been pregnant. Everything in me told me that the baby was mine. His voice grew softer. When you came back, I did the DNA test. He was mine. Morenike's hand gripped the chair. I would have loved to hold him by my side, Obi said, but I guess it's too late for that after all. Morenike and Femi became restless. Their hearts were heavy with sadness after hearing what Obi had said. They could not believe that he had only a short time to live. They went home that night, but sleep did not come easily. Morenike lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. Femi sat by the window, deep in thought. The room was quiet, except for the sound of the ticking clock. The next morning, they woke up early. Their minds were troubled. They did not know what to do. They wanted to help Obi, but he had already accepted his fate. They decided that they would not leave him alone. From that day, they visited him every morning and stayed with him until late in the evening. They sat with him, listened to his stories, and made him laugh. Obi was happy to have them around. He smiled more, even though his body was getting weaker. The days passed quickly. Morenike and Femi spent more time with Obi than anyone else. Mama also visited often with Olu. The little boy did not understand what was happening, but he was always happy to see Obi. He would run into the room and sit beside him, playing with his fingers. Obi would smile and pat his head gently. Seeing them together made Morenike's heart ache, but she stayed strong. One evening, Femi and Morenike arrived at Obi's house as usual. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. They pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was silent. Then they saw him lying on the floor, his body still. Their hearts pounded as they rushed him. They called his name, but he did not respond. Without wasting time, Femi carried him in his arms and they rushed him to the hospital. The doctors worked hard to help him. They gave him medicine and put him on a bed. After a while, the doctor came out and told them they could see him. Slowly, they walked into the room. Obi was lying on the bed, his face pale, his eyes were open. He looked at them and smiled weakly. Tears filled his eyes. He only knew his time had come. Femi and Morenike stood beside him. They held his hand, their hearts filled with sorrow. Obi turned to Femi and made him promise again. He asked Femi to love Morenike and never treat her badly. Femi nodded, unable to speak. His heart was too heavy. Just then, Mama walked in with Olu. The little boy's face lit up when he saw Obi. He ran to the bed and climbed up, holding Obi's hand. Obi smiled and whispered his name, and then, with one last breath, he closed his eyes forever. A deep silence filled the room. Morenike covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. Femi turned away, his eyes wet with sorrow. Mama held Olu close, her heart broken. The days that followed were filled with sadness. A befitting burial was planned for Obi. People came from far and near to pay their last respect. It was a solemn day. The air was heavy with grief. But as the sun set that evening, Morenike and Femi stood together, holding Olu's hands. They knew that life had to continue. Now only the future could tell what would happen next. The most important lesson in this story is about love, responsibility, and forgiveness. Femi, even though he was not Olu's real father, chose to love and care for him as his own. Obi, despite knowing he was dying, did not hold anger in his heart, but instead wanted the best for his son. Morenike showed strength by facing the truth and not running away from her past. This story teaches us that true family is not just about blood, but about love, kindness, and doing what is right. It also reminds us that life is short, so we should cherish the people around us and always choose love over hate. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.